Lesson 9, Introduction to Divs and Spans. So the div tag and span tag, they're really important in website design, and the reason for that is they kind of create the fundamental building blocks for creating layouts. Now a div stands for division, which divides up different sections of your website or different blocks of content. Span is used to select, and it spans across inline content, meaning that website within the actual line itself. In effect, both are just containers around content. The difference between a span and a div is the div has a display property of block, and a span has a display property of inline. Now, it's a lot easier to kind of demonstrate what this means. So I already have the code here on the on my website for the corresponding page to this course lesson. So if I copy this, save it as lesson 09 example 1.html, and then I open this. So I already added some padding and a border and a background color to it. I guess the border doesn't really stand out a whole lot. Maybe if I dim this a little bit too, from D to A. Border. Oh, actually the reason why it doesn't stand out is I've got border equals 1 pixel solid. Now it stands out and you can actually see it. Now I have to go and update basically what I wrote here. I just started writing content for this. I didn't actually necessarily test it out. So I'm going to revise this code, and you're going to have access to the latest version, and I'm going to upload it so you can just download this directly and start playing around with it. But effectively, your the div, and note that both of the div and the span both have the same class, so that really gives you an idea, because they're exactly the same, except one is using a div and the other is using a span. Now what the display equals block means is that it stretches all the way across as far as it can, or as far as it can. The span is a display equals inline, meaning that it only wraps around the content that you have, that you're wrapping the span around. So this needs to actually be changed to span. And what I mean by for the display equals block that it stretches as far as it can, as opposed to it stretching across your screen, is, for example, if I have another, let's say div ID equals container, and then I have everything inside this container. Let's say I do a width equals 50%. If I refresh, see how this this div stretches out as far as it can, but because it's limited by the outside container, that's basically where it stops. But again, the span kind of stops, it just wraps around the content itself. So I know I was kind of a little bit repetitive with that, but I wanted to make sure that I do communicate the difference, as well as demonstrating the difference between a div and a span. Typically, spans are great if you're trying to select certain content, and it wraps around inline, meaning that, for example, if let's say I can add a span over here, span class equals, let's say, highlight. And let's say I wrap it around, just to end it right here. If I add a highlight class here and I do background yellow, if I refresh, maybe color equals black. So this so in this example, I have a span inside a div. So also make sure that you don't put a div inside of a span, because block level elements have a precedence over inline level. So so effectively what that means is you can put the spans inside the divs, but you shouldn't do it the other way around. Now, as far as the common usage of divs and spans, one of the common usage, which I just illustrated, is for spans you can use to highlight specific content. Now, in this demonstration, which I'm going to save this as lesson 09 example 2.html. This kind of gives a better idea of what you can do with divs and spans. You can really use it to stylize certain regions or certain content blocks of your within your web page. And note that I actually have an outer one here, which is div ID with a div with an ID of content. And I'm going to walk through this just real quick with you. The reason why it's centered is because I have the body set to text align equals center, and what that does is it forces everything within the body tag to be aligned to the center, but I don't actually want the content to be aligned to center. I just want to center align this my primary box here, and I'm going to change this from 900 pixels to maybe just 800 or 90% to 800 pixels, so you can really see the difference here. Now that this alone doesn't achieve this, what you would have to do is within your container, your outer container, you have to set it to margin equals 0 space auto. So what that means is the top and bottom margins are set to 0, which is why the top there's no gap in between here. And auto meaning that the left and right margin are automatically set. And that's a really neat trick because it allows you to center your website design and really do some really cool things with it. I can also add maybe a border equals 4 pixel solid black to here, refresh it, and this is basically my my website. Now if I remove this piece and refresh it, I guess it still stays centered, but if I remove this piece, it won't. And that's kind of the a really cool trick with margin equals 0 auto, is you can do stuff like this with it. So that's the first practical purpose, is you can use to stylize specific sections of your content. The other and probably the most widely used application for divs and spans is to create website layouts. So if I take this code and I save it as lesson 09-example3.html, I'm going to close these two or replace this. So this is a basic website layout. I mean, I have a header here, left, a navigational area here, the main content area, and a footer here. And of course, I can throw in some padding and margins to and font styles to really format this to exactly how I want it, as well as setting the background colors and text color to exactly how I want to look like. And this website design or this layout, basically I have it so it kind of stretches all the way across. I can use the same trick that I showed you earlier. So instead of so basically what I will have to do is set for the header, set to maybe, if I want to be 1,000 pixels wide. See how it kind of just stops there. But if I put in margin 0 auto, it centers that, which is kind of nice. Now for the middle portion, might be a little bit tricky, just because the way I have it set right here, I will actually need to wrap the navigation and the content in another div container, and then set that outer div container to have a specific static width, and also to apply the margin 0 auto to that. So let me just go ahead and show you div id equal, maybe give the class container, and then I'm going to indent everything inside here so that way it's a little bit more legible. If I refresh here, nothing happens because I didn't actually add any CSS to the container. So if I container with 1,000 pixels, if I refresh, that kind of what that does is it wraps all of this within that 1,000 pixel container, and then if I want to center that, margin 0 auto, and that's going to center that. And I'm going to do the same thing with the footer, margin 0 auto with 1,000 pixels. And now if I want to border around everything, then what I will need to do is then wrap another container around all of this, and then that way I can give it a border, or I can just go into each of these and do, and so for example, in my header, I can do a border top 2 pixel solid, maybe red, and then what I would do is do a border left 2 pixel solid red, and then border right 2 pixel solid red. And then what I would do is I would kind of just bring the apply the corresponding border side to each of these So for example, the container, I would do a border left 2 pixel solid red, border right 2 pixel solid red. If I refresh here, let's see what's going on here. Oh, you know what? It's the reason it's not showing up is because CSS has this weird thing. I actually need to bring this into here for it to be visible, and I'll explain what I'm doing in a few moments. And then same with the footer. And that basically creates a border around everything. Now I could also, I mean, this is kind of a long way of doing it. So the other approach is I can just, like I said, I can just wrap a container around everything, or a div container around everything, and then set a 2 pixel solid red border around that div container, which wraps around. So that's another method of doing this. When it comes to using divs and spans for creating layouts, there's so many different ways of coding it to achieve basically the same result. But that in a nutshell is the introduction to divs and spans. They're really useful, especially when it comes to building websites. And in the next course, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into creating layouts in HTML using CSS. As well as applying using the div tag specifically for that purpose. Thank you for completing this lesson as part of my HTML 101 course. You can get access to all of the other lessons and course notes and code samples and downloadables and resources. All that's available for free at yan4n1.com/html101. And if you have any questions or concerns pertaining to this specific lesson, feel free to post a comment beneath this YouTube video, and I'll try my best to go in and answer all of your questions and concerns. Also, this video is self-funded, but here's how you can help. You will need a domain name and web hosting for your website to be available for the world to see, and I highly recommend HostGator. It's only a couple bucks a month, and you can upload all of your HTML files there. The customer support is phenomenal. Also, if you want to have a blog, there's a one-click button that you can just click and it'll deploy a WordPress blog for you, and you can have everything professionally set up. If you sign up with HostGator through my affiliate link at yang411.com, not only will you have get a little bit of savings, but it's gonna help me because I get a small commission from the affiliate link if you do sign up, and that's going to help me in supporting my YouTube channel, as well as supporting me in creating more courses available for free for you guys.